Hello, my name's Lloyd Clarke. The documentary you're about to see is called Operation Fishlift. It's about my father, Lloyd Clarke, and his fishing activities in the Gulf of Carpentaria from 1954 to 1958. Dad air freighted over 130,000 pounds of Barramundi and King Salmon a year to Mount Isa and beyond. And in 1957, after seeing large amounts of prawns just after the wet each year, flicking away from his nets and also catching good quantities of prawns in a beam trawl he made, which he towed behind the Larry Cork, Lloyd Clarke took this information to the Queensland Government and recommended that they conduct a prawn survey in the Gulf. This happened in 1962, 1965. Lloyd Clarke may not have been the first to catch prawns in the Gulf, but he was the first to do something about it. And he was also the first commercial Queensland fisherman to pioneer the vast, rich waters of the Gulf of Carpentaria. And he should get the recognition he deserves. Another very important player in this venture was my mother, Marie Isabel Clarke. She was small in stature, big in heart. There was nothing Mum would shy away from, and she tackled every challenge with enthusiasm. Also my sisters, Barbara, Elaine and Joan. And without them, the fishing ventures to the Gulf would not have been as successful as they were. I would also like to thank the crew, Jack Sewell, Graham Barnett, Barry Clarke, John Kettleton, Ron Scheibel, Eric McWhinney, and Dad's sister and brother-in-law, Mari and Matt Campbell, who run the distribution centre in Mount Isa. This documentary was filmed in 1956 by the late Morgan Jones of Nunda Film Club, Brisbane, and it was narrated by Russ Tyson from the ABC. It won 16 awards around the world and was seen in cinemas all over Australia, which put Karumba and Normanton on the map. I would like to apologise for the soundtrack on this movie, but it was lost to us for over 30 years and was found by my sister Barbara. For the full story on my father's amazing life, check out my book, Operation Fishlift, which is in the library. Also, there's over 100 photos and articles in the library on his life. Thank you for your attention. Now sit back and enjoy this great piece of our fishing history. Thank you.
Normanton Radio to VM QLD. Ship Larry Cork. Normanton Radio to small ship Larry Cork. Please repeat your message. Over.
Yes, small ship Larry Cork to Normanton Radio. Small ship Larry Cork to Normanton Radio. Messages will require charter aircraft for maximum uplift fish Tuesday, 9 a.m. And so another request for an air freighter comes from the man who is pioneering the first large-scale fishing industry ever to succeed in the remote Gulf of Carpentaria, Captain Lloyd Clarke. With a ready market in the fish-starved central and far western areas of Queensland, the use of aircraft has made this venture possible. Operating from the old wartime Catalina flying bird base at Karumba, 40 miles downstream from the aerodrome at Normanton, exceptional planning has gone into this experiment. The ex-RAF buildings on the site have been leased for living quarters, and the raft cold rooms, too, fit well into the scheme. And no finer workboat will be found on any fishing ground. This ex-naval mine layer, powered by twin 150 horsepower diesels, has a built-in snap freezer to cater for 12,000 pounds of fish. For 10 months of the year, Captain and Mrs. Clarke spend much of their time aboard the Larry Cork. A few days prior to the radio call, at sunrise on Good Friday morning to be exact, the Larry Cork cleared the mouth of the Norman River and set course due west across the lower Gulf waters. It's a little-known fact that there is no ground swell in the Gulf waters, and so with only a light breeze, the sea is calm. Being Easter weekend, the usual crew is having time off, and in their stead are 3 lads from Normanton having a busman's holiday. The telegram boy, McGinty, they called him. And then there was Fitzy, a ringer from Milgara Cattle Station. The younger of the Clarke girls, Elaine. Elaine had been out many times before with her elder sister, Barbara. And then there was the warder from Normanton Hospital and spare-time wild pig and crocodile hunter, Jackie Campbell. Barbara hears for the first time from Jackie the story of how the hunted nipped the hunter when Jack lost his rifle in a tussle with a wounded 6-foot croc. Yes, he'll carry the teeth scars on his shoulder and on his forearm for many a long day. The regular deckhand, Graham Barnett, was there. And of course, as on any ship, the pets, Barbara's cat and Elaine's pal, Coco. Well out across the Gulf now, the Larry Cork heads inshore. For much of the coastal region here has never been charted. And though the larger rivers like the Flinders, the Leichhardt and Bynoe are marked, there are hundreds of tidal salt arms and saltwater creeks along the coast, and very few have seen sight of a boat. Some, though, are navigable for boats as large as the 83-foot Larry Cork for distances up to 20 miles. And just such a waterway is Wild Horse Creek. Though no different from the rest, with its outlet camouflaged by the fringe of mangroves all along its banks. Seeing it from the angle of the alert fishhawk, it's like a huge snake, winding and wiggling its way across the tidal salt pans, with its almost unbroken edging of crocodile-infested mango trees. With a rising tide, the Larry Cork nudges along almost 12 miles upstream before the anchor is lowered. Contrary to general belief, the lush Barramundi, King Salmon and Blue Salmon of the Gulf waters are estuary fish, travelling upstream almost to the watershed on the incoming tide, feeding on the huge shoals of river prawns to be found there, and returning to the open sea on the falling tide. So the great 7-inch mesh are set at the top of the tide, and all is ready for the great horde to start running. The 7-inch mesh, incidentally, allows any fish under 10 pounds to go free. In less than 2 hours, the first of the big ones are hitting the nets, and there are the first of the day. 2 beautiful king salmon, all of 30 pounds each. Soon the pace is on. Already the nets are filling fast, and must be cleared before the now tepid water draining off the sun-scorched salt pans turns the carcasses. Captain Clarke estimates that not more than 1 hour must elapse before the fish are cleared, treated and safely stowed in the deep freeze. but the scavenger hooks are always somewhere about, just in case. 50 pounds of real barramundi. Barramundi, by the Aboriginal name, meaning delicious fish, and surprisingly it retains its tender, juicy texture, no matter how big. Captain Clarke's record to date was a monster of 93 pounds. But now there's the real work to be done as the minutes tick by. Barramundi are separated from the salmon and everybody goes into action. First the heading and gutting, and for an amateur, Jack Campbell is no mean hand at cleaning the backbone. Proper treatment of the fish before it is placed in the deep freeze is essential. The backbone must be completely cleaned and the carcasses thoroughly washed and scrubbed to remove the thin coating from the scale. The heads are removed to conserve space in the freezer. And so it goes on. As quickly as the fish is treated and stowed in the freezer, the boys are back and forth to the nets, keeping the supply up to the cleaners. Finally, by late afternoon, the last of the catch for the day has been taken from the nets, and the last session at the benches is well underway. An important feature in snap freezing is that though the fish have to be washed thoroughly, they must be drained quite dry. Any excess water will hamper the freezing action on the fish. Correctly frozen, it will keep pure and wholesome indefinitely, even in a domestic refrigerator. But now it's the crew's turn to be washed. There's no over the side for a swim here. There could be crocodiles in those murky waters. With the last of the fish to be stowed away, Captain Clarke again dons his woolies because it's 30 below in there. Specially built into the Larry Cook, this deep freezer has its own power plant and compressor, and the ammonia coils are built around the walls to make shelves on which to stack the fish. And so the first day's catch, a tidy 3,500 pounds, is stowed away. With an overnight set of one of the nets, Clarke and Jackie are out early to clear it before the tide starts to run in. The tides in this area, incidentally, are different. Instead of the usual 2 tides daily, there is only one. 12 hours in and 12 out. Different too are the mangroves, not the usual stunted shrubs, but high and thick like trees, and the side channels, favourite spots for the wily crop. Friend Fishhawk is out early too, hoping perhaps for a few strays. But he's not the only scavenger in these waters, for there's trouble in the other boat. A real marauder has been caught. Sometime during the night, this 8 feet of ugliness, hoping to get a fish supper the easy way, has gotten himself all trussed up. Being an air-breathing creature, his struggles to reach air have entangled him in the net, and he is drowned. But he may not be as dead as he looks, and so the boys take no chances. This morning's tally is over 400 pounds of nice-sized fish, mostly barramundi, and some of the biggest caught this trip too. But by the state of the net, there were bigger and better ones that got away. Barra have little respect for a net. They'll come right up and softly nudge it, then swim back 30 or 40 yards, turn and hurtle at full speed straight at it. With the tide on the rise for some hours to come, fishing is over for the day. But there are many chores to be done. The crock to skin, the nets to be dried, to be checked, and temporarily mended. properly removed, treated and tanned, the hide of a crocodile is greatly prized for the making of travelling bags, ladies' handbags and shoes. But it is poor consolation indeed for the damage that can be done to a net. Made of imported heavy linen twine, these nets cost upwards of £1 a yard. So a 300 to 500 yard net runs into real money. Constant and regular drying to remove the sludge and mud from the river, and the checking and the mending, all help to keep it in good order. Putting ashore anywhere here can be fraught with danger, particularly on the banks of the creeks and salt pans of this uninhabited region. For this too is the habitat of the taipan, Australia's most vicious and venomous snake. These two are the basking places of the crocodile, though it is surprising to know that crocs do not bask during the summer, for the sun's heat cracks their skin. They simply take a regular beauty treatment with an all-over mud bath. Even with the best of attention, the useful life of one of these barramundi nets is about 6 weeks, or the equivalent of about 35,000 pounds of fish, and that's not allowing for the damage these fellows can do. And so, for the first time since leaving Karumba, everything is quiet and still aboard the Larry Cork, except perhaps for the chug-chug of the diesel motor of the refrigeration plant. Most have gone below for a rest or to read a book, while Jack Campbell catches up on some sleep under the rear awning. Next day, and if the fishing is good, the last day this trip in Wild Horse Creek. So as the tide nears its peak, the boats are away and once more the mad rush will be on. The collecting, the back and forth between net and ship, the cleaning, the heading and the packing into the freezer. Finally, before the tide gets too low, the nets are gathered with the remainder of the catch, and the last boat heads back to the ship. Now it's time to leave Wild Horse Creek as the Larry Cork prepares to slip downstream, ready for the run home on the morrow, while all hands attend to the unfinished business as the ship gets underway. When the decks have been cleared, there should be a tidy 6,500 pounds stowed away, a catch that would be the end. Early next morning, the Larry Cork leaves the mouth of Wild Horse Creek, and with Mrs. Clarke at the wheel, sets a course across the Gulf for Karumba. The boys enjoy a dip over the stern now, safe in the thought that a crocodile is a slow swimmer anyway. At midday on Easter Monday, the Larry Cork is the mouth of the Norman River, less than 3 miles now from the base at Karumba. And it was at this point that Captain Clarke made his radio call to Normanton to order the charter plane for the following morning. The old concrete Catalina flying boat slipway is ideal for the easy handling of the ship's gear, the ever-necessary drying and proper inspecting of the nets, and, despite the ever-present danger of crocodiles, the attention needed for the small boats, which must be done at the water's edge. Crocodiles, by the way, have a supposed lifespan of 1,000 years. So, as Captain Clarke puts it, a few hours a day lurking in the shallows waiting for a false move is a mere bagatelle to these wily monsters. Inviting as it may be on a hot, sultry day, a swim in the river is taboo. But the kids have hijinks in the now clean fish trough on the Larry Cork. Early Tuesday morning, and the final stage of Operation Fish Lift is underway. The Larry Cork arrives at Normanton for the DC-3 charter plane. And as we stand by for the loading and departure of the plane, our thoughts go back over the past few days to the tranquil scene of the Larry Cork at anchor in Wild Horse Creek, to the young folk like Jackie Campbell and Elaine and Barbara Clark, and to the hours upon hours of hard work, the very basis of this story of the feeding of the multitude. And to the reminder, too, of the dangers that lurk in these muddy waters, and the memories of the ones that didn't get away. Loaded to capacity, the hatches are closed, and the plane now prepares to take off. One of the great fish stories of our time has been told. And in passing, our final thoughts are of the folk behind it all, the Clarks of Karumba, people whose lives are steeped deep in the ways and traditions of centuries of fisherfolk.